Hello, my name is Luke, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to install a mini split from start to finish. We're installing a Klimaire unit that you can purchase directly from heatandcool.com, and they delivered it right to my door. The system supports Wi-Fi control for remote monitoring and adjustment, so I can warm the shop up before heading out. It's rated to provide heating performance down to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, and the outdoor coil uses a gold fin anti-corrosion coating for long-term durability. We're going to get into the full install of this video, and we'll see you again at the end. There'll be 4 main steps that we'll cover in this video. The first will be to install the indoor unit up on the wall behind me here. Then we'll install the outdoor unit, the compressor, as close as we can on the outside of that exterior wall back there. The third step will be to run the copper line set and communication lines and condensation drain from the indoor unit to the outdoor unit. Then finally, we'll run power from our electrical panel to the service disconnect box that will mount next to the outdoor unit, and then we'll connect it up. Let's get started with that first step right now. So I'm going to take the unit here and set it down with the back facing up so that I can take off the mounting bracket. And then I'll take some measurements and we'll mount it up on the wall in the proper location. There's usually just a single screw that holds this in place. Now we can release the tabs and take it off. In my install, the line set needs to leave the side of the machine over here. So I'll pop this piece off here. Now I can carefully cut these tabs. This small piece here just pops out. If you wanted the line sets to be hidden in the wall, then you wouldn't pop this side piece off and you'd bend them so they go straight into the wall behind you. But in our case, they're gonna leave the side of the machine right over here. So now I'm gonna very carefully and slowly bend these. This right here is our condensation drain. You always want the drain to leave at the lowest point possible on the machine. So we're gonna have it come over and leave directly below the line set, just like so. Now in my case, I have plywood I can screw the bracket directly to, but if you were putting this over drywall, you'd want to make sure there's backing behind the drywall so you have a secure mount. It can be helpful to take a scrap block and stick it behind the machine to hold it off the wall while we route the communication line up and into the back. These wires are numbered or color-coded depending on your unit, and you want to make sure that they match the indoor and the outdoor unit. That's the most important thing. Now we're outside where the compressor is going to get mounted, and in my case, I have a black metal stand that I've put in the ground and made sure that it's perfectly level. The other options are to pour a concrete pad or mount it to the wall. The disadvantage to mounting it to the wall is that the vibrations travel through the wall and you hear it a little bit more on the inside, although these units are very, very quiet. We're going to go ahead and bolt that down, and then we can cut the hole in the wall to start running our line set. The unit comes with rubber feet that sit between it and whatever you mount it to. Now that I have the unit mounted, I've double checked where I want it to come through the wall to the inside, and this is what's going to get mounted to the wall after the hole and the lines are run through to protect them from the rain getting into the hole. Now that I got the hole drilled, the next step is to run the main line set from the inside to the outside. And what I'll do is connect it on the inside first once I get it run, and then I'll cut the excess off on this end and connect it over here. Now we're back on the inside, and we have 3 main lines to run. There's the condensation line, there's the power line, and the main copper lines. The important thing is that the condensation drain line is sloping downward from the point it leaves the machine all the way to outside. And in my case, I can let it just drain right there onto the gravel because it's not very much water. I like to use these larger PVC clamps to put in place, and they're kind of stretchy, so I can screw one side and then bend it open and pop my line into it. That way it can help support it for me while I get the line up there. Eventually, when this gets all finished in here, I'll just box around it with a little bit of a soffit. You could run them through the joists, which we've done on the inside of houses on new builds where you don't want to see them at all. But in this case, in a shop, we're not really going to mind seeing a little bit of a soffit there, so we're just going to run it exposed. It makes it a lot easier. I'm going to go ahead and snap a line where I'm coming from to where I'm heading to, so that when I put my clamps in, they can be a nice, perfect straight line. You want to make sure you uncoil your line set like this, where you roll it out along the ground to straighten it out. If you undo it another direction, you can put kinks in it. I'm gonna guide this side out my hole carefully. Now I'm gonna run outside and make sure that it doesn't go too far and bend. Now that I have the line set in there close to where it belongs, I can go ahead and connect the upper connections here to the indoor unit. Now we have both lines connected and torqued down to spec. If you don't have a torque wrench, you can use regular wrenches, but you do need to make sure that they're surprisingly tight because it is the copper flared fitting getting pushed up tight to the brass that makes a seal. So you would never want to put Teflon tape on these threads because then it would not allow the nut to get as tight as it needs to be, and the seal isn't actually coming from those threads. Now I can pull the power cord through where it belongs and we'll run the condensation drain, making sure that it has a slope all the way to the outside. The drain hose used for the condensation line is just a plastic corrugated line. You want to make sure it doesn't get kinked anywhere. At the connection to the unit drain, and if there is a splice anywhere else, I recommend wrapping a waterproof tape, like a high quality electrical tape, around that connection. Next, I'm going to take some white tape, and starting at the top, I'm going to work my way down, taping the bundle together neatly with the condensation line on the bottom so that it's sloping down the entire way. All right, that's it. We got all the lines run neatly out the wall. Next step is to go outside and get everything connected to the compressor. On the outdoor unit, first I'll connect the line set, and I'll start by cutting the insulation out of my way. Now we're ready to cut the copper here, and you want to make sure that you leave at least a little bit extra in case the flare doesn't work out. You have a chance to cut it off and try again. This tool, you just rotate and tighten slightly each rotation, and the wheel rolls along the copper until it's cut far enough for it to break loose. Now I want to make sure the end of this is smooth and deburred before we flare it. Now we'll go ahead and cut this larger one as well. All right, there we go. Now we're ready to flare them. Now we can take these caps off of the unit, and we don't have to worry about anything leaking out because these valves here are still shut. Now you want to always remember to put this nut on before you flare it, because if you forget, then you'll have to cut it off and redo it again. So with the nut in place, we'll slide our flare tool over and we'll make sure we put it on the correct size for the lines that we have. And we'll make sure it's flush with the face of our flare tool. So if you look closely here, you can see we have the nut on, and this is the side of the flare tool that has a divot in it. That's the place that the end of the copper is going to get flared out into. The other side of this tool does not have that. So it's important you put the tool on the correct direction. Now with it slid close to its position, as I tighten this down, it'll find the divot and then it'll force it to slide right into the correct position. Now I'll tighten it. And now all I have to do is crank this down and it will find the right position there and it'll flare it out for us. This specific tool automatically slips at the end so you don't over tighten it. So it makes it really easy. You just keep tightening until it stops. Just like so. Now you reverse it and it locks and comes back off. Now we can pull this off and see how we did. Now that we have that flared, this nut will slide over and thread on to here, shoving that copper in tight against there to make the actual seal. Now let's go ahead and do the top one. Now that I have both flared and ready, we'll go ahead and connect this bottom one. Next, we'll connect our communication line here. Now that I have all the lines run outside, I can install this cover, and I'm going to put some sealant and then screw it to the wall right there. All right, my next step is to mount the service disconnect here and pull power into it from inside. I'm gonna come directly into the back of my box, then I can seal around it to the metal so that no water gets in that hole. I'm using 10-2 building wire that I pushed in from the inside of the building, and it's gonna go through the proper grommet for that into my box here. That should be plenty. Now I'll apply sealant to the back of this box and screw it to the wall. I'm putting the sealant right around that hole so it's sealed to the siding before it even gets to the wire. An important thing to note is whether your unit is 240 volts or 120 volts. My unit and most larger units are all gonna be 240 volts. That means you're gonna have 2 hots and a ground. That's all that'll be going back to your panel. But if you use regular building wire like I have here, the standard 2 conductors with a ground, one of them will be white and one of them will be black. And you want future people who open this up to know that this white is not a neutral and it's actually another hot. So we're gonna put some red tape on this in this disconnect box and at the panel so that anyone working on this in the future will know. Your specific disconnect box might be different, so make sure you look at the instructions that come with yours and make sure you have things wired to the correct positions. Now we'll take the supplied whip, wire it into the disconnect box and the machine. I don't need it to be this long, so I'm gonna cut it down so it's a little bit neater. I'll probably go out of the bottom of this at an angle and curve up into there. This stuff you can usually put a little bit of a slit and then break it without cutting the wires inside. For the ground wire, I cut it to length and I'm gonna crimp this fitting on the end so it can fit under that screw. You'll see an L1 and an L2, that's for your 2 different lines, and which color goes where doesn't matter. This is the sub panel in the shop here, and this is my wire that we already wired in over at the disconnect box. So I'm gonna pop a new spot for it to come in up here. These are handy little wire strippers that work on a variety of sizes of Romex. You slide it onto the Romex up to the point you want to strip it. You press down and the little blade on it kind of digs in, and then when you pull it off, it strips it for you. It's a little bit easier than using a knife. Now remember, this white wire here needs to get taped red and get attached to the breaker, not the neutral bar. But our ground wire is ready to go straight to the ground bar. You always want to double check the correct size breaker for the exact unit that you're installing. For us, it'll be a 30 amp breaker. I've pulled the Romex into the panel with the right fitting, and I've taped the white wire red because it's actually a hot wire. And now I'm gonna connect it and the black wire to a new 30 amp breaker. And then of course I attach the ground down to the ground bar. If you're not comfortable doing the electrical yourself, definitely hire a licensed electrician to do this part for you. Now before I can put my panel cover back on, I have to pop out 2 of these for both poles of the breaker I put in. Now that I got everything closed up and the panel cover back on, I'm gonna leave this breaker off until we're ready to actually fire the unit up. Our next step will be to go outside and get the unit charged. Now we're out here at the outdoor unit and I'm getting rained on a little bit, but we're ready to get this thing charged up. So in order to do that, we need to pull all the air out of the line set and the indoor unit, which are connected right now. But we have not opened the valve yet to release the refrigerant that comes pre-charged in the outdoor unit. So we're gonna use this service port right here, take the cap off, and we have a Schrader valve removal tool. And this is a fancy little tool that is designed to hook up to a mini split. And when we hook it up here, it'll give us a port to connect our meter to. We're gonna slide this in and it's gonna engage with the Schrader valve. And that's a lot like the valve stem on a regular tire, but it's slightly larger. And once I'm pretty confident that I got it grabbed on, I'm gonna rotate this to actually unscrew that valve. Now that this plunger is out of the way, I can shut the valve there and unscrew this end here. And now I've effectively pulled the Schrader valve core out, and this is all still completely sealed. And that's gonna be important after we've charged everything to do this in the reverse steps without letting anything leak. So now I can go set this in a safe place. Now I'm gonna hook up my gauge here to this port that is on the back side of the valve. So it's gonna be live even when I turn the valve off. It'll be reading the pressure of all the line set and the indoor unit. Now that I've got my gauge hooked up there, I'll hook the vacuum pump up to this other port here. And I'll make sure that it's snug on both ends. And now my gauge uses my phone as the screen, so I'll connect to it so I can read the pressure. Now we'll plug the pump in, we'll get it started first, and then we'll open this valve. Now we'll let this sit until the pressure gets down to 500 microns or below. Then we'll shut this valve off, we'll shut the pump off, and we'll let it sit for at least an hour. And if the pressure hasn't raised at all, then we'll know that we don't have any leaks and we'll be ready to go ahead and release the refrigerant from this unit into the system. All right, I'm back. We let that sit for an hour and the pressure didn't change at all. So we're ready to go and put the Schrader valve back in. Now we have to do this in the correct steps. So with this valve still turned off, I can now disconnect the pump, but I want to make sure as I rotate this that I do not rotate any of the other fittings and loosen them. Now before I turn that valve on, if I place the removal tool back in there, when I tighten it on, the plunger actually makes a seal. Everything is now sealed and I should be able to open this valve without the pressure changing almost at all. Now I'll slide this in and now I'm rotating it to get the Schrader valve screwed back in where it belongs. Okay, that feels about good. We don't want to overdo it. Now I can slide this back out. Now that I've screwed the Schrader valve back in, I can take all of this off the machine. So I removed the meter and removed this, and now I can put the cap back on this end here. There we go. The next step will be to open the valves and release a little bit of pressure from the refrigerant into the system. So we'll start with this upper one. We'll remove the cap here and use the right size Allen wrench, and we're gonna unscrew it until we hear refrigerant coming out, and then we'll just wait maybe 3 seconds or so. Now that I've released just a little bit of refrigerant into the system, you can even see the lines are getting cold there. The next step would be to take some soapy water and run it across each of our fittings and make sure that none of them are leaking. If we see any bubbles, that means we have a leak, and then we need to fix the leak and then pull a new vacuum and repeat the process. But we've only let a little bit of refrigerant out, so we don't have to recharge the whole system. So I didn't have any leaks. Now I'm ready to open it all the way. So I'll start by opening this upper one. You want to just keep unscrewing till it gets to the stop point at the end there and not overdo it. Now we can take the cap off the lower one and open that valve as well. This will fully complete the circuit and have it open all the way around. Right till it bottoms out. Now we'll want to put these caps back on and torque them down as well. There we go, we're all done outside, and it's time to go fire up the unit and see if we get some hot air. The last thing we'll do before we fire the machine up is to make sure the filters are clean. They pop out really easily, and if they ever get dusty or dirty, you can rinse them out or blow them out. And in a shop like this, they might get sawdust or other things on them, so I want to make sure I keep an eye on that. Now we're ready to fire it up. Now we'll give it a minute and we'll see if we get some hot air. It's working, blowing hot air now. These things are fantastic because they're so quiet. Other shop heaters that I've had, I have to turn off when I'm filming because you pick it up on the microphone too loud. But you can barely hear this one at all. All right, I'm back. It's been about a month since I did this install and we've had temperatures down into the teens, and this unit has worked super, super well. It's a Klimaire 24,000 BTU unit, but you can check out and purchase all the other options they have at heatandcool.com, and you don't have to be a contractor to buy them. That covers the full mini split install. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and we'll see you on the next one.